Hello, can you hear us, Madam Interpreter?
I can hear you.
Fantastic. Okay, we're going to start calling up all of our Spanish interpreter cases for Orange County. Have you been previously sworn in?
I haven't been sworn in, no.
I'm sorry, can you speak a little bit louder? It's kind of hard to hear.
I have not been sworn in.
All right, we're going to go get you sworn in.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to translate from Spanish to English, English to Spanish, truthfully in these matters here today?
Yes, I swear.
Did you say yes or?
Yes, I swear.
All right, thank you. Can we have Mr. Lorenzo Tepete Martinez state your name for the record, please?
Señor Lorenzo Capitet Martínez, por favor, declare su nombre para la grabación.
Lorenzo Tepete Martínez.
Thank you.
Lorenzo Capitet Martínez.
Who do we have as counsel for Mr. Tepete Martinez?
Good morning, Judge. Carlos Ivan on behalf of Mr. Tapatete Martinez.
Who do we have on behalf of the state?
Video Boudin for the state, Your Honor.
Siria Pudar, de parte del Estado. Su honoría.
We're here today on a battery domestic violence charge. What says counsel for Mr. Tepete Martinez?
Your Honor, conferring with the prosecutor on this case, prosecutor would agree to release on all recognizance. He would have to maintain separate residence and not have contact with his wife, who's the victim in the case. So we would ask the court to allow him to be released on his own recognizance.
Can you translate that, Mr. Interpreter?
Yes, would you ask the parties here to allow me to interpret the question as well as the answer before answering the question or addressing?
He's asking that everyone allow him time to interpret after the question is asked and then after the answer is answered. All right. Did you hear argument from counsel?
Thank you. Ahorita se le está pidiendo que se le deje salir bajo su propia responsabilidad, sin multa por a usted, para dejarlo salir en cuanto a este atraco que hizo de violencia doméstica mientras usted se mantenga lejos de la víctima, que es la esposa, mantenerse alejado de ella y salir bajo su propia responsabilidad.
Sí.
What says the state? Is that the agreement?
Your Honor,
Es lo que dice el Estado. ¿Eso están en acuerdo?
the state would actually request that a bond be set according to the bond schedule.
Se le pide de parte del Estado que se le ponga una fianza y que se le imponga una fianza dado al horario que tiene a fianza el Estado.
And if he is released on bond, to have no contact with the victim and no return to the victim's residence.
Y si se le deja salir bajo fianza, se le pide de parte del Estado que no tenga contacto con la víctima ni tampoco puede regresar ahí a la residencia de la víctima.
State, have you had any contact with the victim?
No, Your Honor.
¿Ha tenido algún contacto con la víctima? No, su honoría.
And, Your Honor, I didn't want to misrepresent what me and the state spoke about. We did speak about it, and she told me she was okay with releasing on recognizance.
Le
Was there an
quiero
agreement?
volver a repetir que hablamos con lo del Estado y ellos de parte del representante del Estado quedó de acuerdo que sí lo podríamos dejar salir bajo su propia responsabilidad.
State, was there an agreement?
De parte del Estado, ¿vieron acuerdo?
Your Honor, I didn't hear the RR part. I thought he was asking if I would object to a bond being set.
Yo no escuché el acuerdo así acerca de dejarlo salir bajo RR. Yo pensé que me preguntó acerca de dejarlo bajo oposición a una fianza.
And the victim is not present, is that correct?
That's correct, Your
La
Honor.
víctima no está presente, ¿verdad? Correcto, su honoría.
Any additional arguments from counsel for Mr. Tepete Martinez?
Your Honor, I would ask the court to consider release on all recognizance. I think he has no prior record. The victim's not here as well. He will abide by the order of no contact. He will maintain a separate residence, not have contact with her. Well, that's just one time, if allowed with the police, he can pick up his belongings. And then obviously we would file the proper motions in county court, Your Honor.
Queremos que usted considere su honoría dejarlo salir bajo su propia responsabilidad sin multa alguna. Creo que él no tiene antecedentes, va a obedecer por lo que se le ordene, mantendrá la residencia separada, no tendrá algún contacto y no tiene algún otro previo récord. Intentaríamos ir por lo que es ahí a la estación de policía acá para recoger sus pertenencias y tramitaríamos después en la corte.
The court is going to find probable cause, enter an order of no contact with the victim,
La corte encuentra causa probable y vamos a entrar en una orden de que no tenga contacto con la víctima.
no return to the residence.
No puede regresar a la residencia.
The defendant can go to the residence one time with police assistance to get personal belongings.
Puede regresar a la residencia una vez solamente con la asistencia de policía para recoger sus pertenencias personales.
I'm going to send a bond amount at $1,000.
Y le voy a imponer una fianza, una multa fianza de $1,000.
Are there any other issues in regards to this case?
¿Algún otro dilema en cuanto a este caso?
Not from defense, Your Honor.
Hearing none, we're going to call the next Spanish interpreter case.
Ok, si no escuchamos nada, vamos a llamar al otro caso con intérprete español.
You can say the names and then I'll look at it afterwards.
Natalino, Vasquez, Miranda.
Okay.
Natalino Vasquez Miranda.
Sorry. I'll pass that one to you.
Cesar Vasquez Perez.
Esta Vázquez Pérez.
Mr. Cesar Vasquez Perez, please go ahead and state your name for the record.
César Vázquez Pérez, por favor, diga su nombre para la grabación.
César Auri Vázquez Pérez.
César Auri Vázquez Pérez.
I'll go ahead and appoint the Public Defender's Office to represent this defendant. What's your name for the record?
Joshua Sinclair.
Thank you. Who's here for the state?
Vidya Budan for the state.
All right, we're here today for an ag assault with a firearm, possession of fentanyl, and possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. What says counsel for Mr. Vasquez Perez?
Your Honor,
Let the
Está
interpreter
aquí
interpret.
por la acusación de lo que es un atraco con arma de fuego y luego también posesión de arma de fuego y fentanol en un pelón actual. ¿Qué es lo que dice la consejería?
What says counsel for the defense?
Your Honor, I believe this was a warrant from a failure to appear. His bonds were set in the warrant.
Esto fue de lo que era la orden de arresto y porque usted incumplió con presentarse, eso se le integró a orden de arresto en contra suya.
It looks like there are two cases. There's two different case numbers.
Yes, I'm sorry, Your Honor.
We got the failure to appear for the possession of heroin, possession of controlled substance, and possession of paraphernalia.
Okay, tenemos dos casos, en el incumplimiento de aparecerse a presentarse por posesión de lo que es la droga con droga parafinalia, la posesión de parafinalia de hacer drogas y también la posesión de I'm sorry, what was the possession, Your Honor?
Possession of drug paraphernalia.
Substance. The substance.
Oh, possession of a controlled substance.
Okay, lo que era una sustancia controlada.
So in regards to both cases, what says counsel for Mr. Vasquez Perez?
Your Honor, that's the
Entonces, ¿qué
court
es lo
just
que dice
said.
la consejería en cuanto a los dos casos para el señor Vázquez Pérez?
Your Honor, that's the court set a reasonable bond.
What says the state?
Le pedimos que tenga una fianza razonable, que es lo que dice el Estado.
Your Honor, state would request that bond remain as set on all charges.
Se le pide de parte de aquí del Estado que se le deje la fianza como está y también se le mantengan los cargos en contra.
And as set by the warrant judge, the judge that signed the warrant.
Here's what the court's
Y
going to
es
do.
así como que es lo que la corte va a
2020
hacer.
CF 13883. Bond for count 1 is going to be 30,000. Bond for count 2 is going to be $250. Bond for count 3 is going to be $250. In regards to 2021 CF 7541, court's going to set count 1 bond at $50,000, count 2 at $1,000, count 3 at $5,000, and do not possess any weapons or firearms.
Only in this case,
And
not
we're-
in this case.
I'm going to order that in regards to both cases. Any other issues on this
En
case?
cuanto al caso 2020 CF 13883, en la cuenta número 1 en su contra se le pone la fianza a $30,000 de fianza. Por la cuenta número 2 el cargo se le hace a 250 de fianza. Por el cargo número 3, en este caso 250 de fianza. Por el caso 2020 CF 135,741 se le hace la fianza en el primer cargo a $50,000 de fianza, el segundo cargo en su contra de este caso a $1,000 de fianza, el tercer cargo en su contra a $5,000 de fianza, y se le pide que no vaya a poseer droga, de que no vaya a poseer ninguna arma de fuego.
I'm also going to order no contact with the victim
También le voy a ordenar que no tenga contacto con la víctima,
for the eye assault case.
por lo que fue el caso de atraco.
Any other issues, counsel, for Mr. Vasquez Perez?
No, Your Honor.
¿Algún otro dilema de parte del consejería para el señor Vasquez Pérez?
Anything else on behalf of the state?
No, Your Honor.
¿Algo más de parte del Estado? No sonaría.
Now we're going to move on to Mr. Valmont or Villanueva Valmont Inez. Sure, I didn't say that correctly.
Manuel Belmont Inés.
Ruben Villanueva Martinez.
Ruben
Villanueva.
Villanueva Valmont Inez. Okay. Go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
Diga su nombre para el archivo, por favor.
Rubén Villanueva Montañez.
Go
Rubén
ahead.
Villanueva Montañez.
I'll go ahead and appoint the Public Defender's Office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Mr. Villanueva Valmont Inez?
Joshua
Y le
Sinclair.
voy a poner al consejero de que es público aquí como su defensor. ¿Quién está aquí de parte de su consejería?
Who's here for the state?
Vidya Budan for the state.
Viria Budán de parte del Estado.
All right, we're here today on same person or somebody else?
Same person. Name just moved down here. CT cases.
Gotcha. All right, we're here today for three different cases for
Estamos aquí el día de hoy por 3 diferentes casos.
For 2021 CF 7529, we have
Caso 2021 CF 7529.
battery on a law enforcement officer, possession of cocaine, tampering with evidence, resisting officer, and possession of drug paraphernalia.
tenemos un atraco a un oficial de policía, tenemos posesión de cocaína, tenemos que ha estado temperando con la evidencia, tenemos resistencia a usted en cuanto a esta evidencia, y luego tenemos que tenía en su posesión parafinalia de drogas.
For 2021 CT 4595, the charge is Dwillis.
Que para lo que es el caso 2021 CF 4595 se le carga como Willis.
And for 2021 MM 4396, it is resisting officer without violence.
Para lo que es el 2021 MM 4396 se le tiene acusado de resistirse con violencia a un oficial.
What says counsel for this defendant?
Your Honor,
Lo que dice la consejería a este defensa acusado.
Your Honor, Mr. Villanueva has no violent history. He's also indigent. I would ask the court to set bond at $100 in the MM case and the CT case, and then $1,000 on the battery on Leo, and $100 on all the remaining counts in the felony case.
Que ahorita el señor Villanueva no tiene algún otro historial de violencia. Se le pide a usted, su señoría, que le ponga la fianza a $100 por esto. En los casos MM y CT, que se le ponga a una fianza a $1,000 por el atraco a Leo y $1,000 por lo que fue el cargo de felonía y los otros cargos restantes.
What says the state?
¿Qué dice el Estado?
Your Honor, state would request that bond remain as set on all cases and counts. Also, if the defendant is released, no drugs, no driving.
The court's going to
Que
set,
se le pide, su señoría, que se le deje la fianza como ya se ha declarado en todo el caso, en todas las acusaciones, y también se le pide que si se le da la fianza no posea drogas ni tampoco pueda conducir.
the court's going to set the resisting officer without violence at $250.
Que se le pone de parte de la corte la fianza por resistir sin violencia a un oficial de una fianza de $250.
The court's going to set the Dwillis bond at $250 with no driving.
Y se le pide en cuanto a lo que es el acusado de manguando, esto sería a $250 también por parte de la corte.
And for the 7529 case,
Y el caso de 7529,
count 1 is going to be $2,500 bond. Count 2, $150. Count 3, $150. Count 4, $100. Count 5, $100.
en cuanto a ese sería el caso, el cargo 1 a $2,500, el cargo 2 a $150 de fianza, el cargo 3 $150, el cargo 4 a $100, el cargo 5 a $100 de fianza.
Are there any other issues on this case?
No, Your Honor.
¿Hay algún otro dilema en cuanto a este caso?
All right, thank you. Is it the last Spanish interpreter case? All right, we're going to go off the line with the interpreter's office. Thank you. All right, do we have Mr. Maldonado Cabaret?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead and state your name for the record.
Isaac Maldonado.
Is it Maldonado or Maldonado Cabaret?
Maldonado Cabrera.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Mr. Maldonado Cabaret?
Joshua Sinclair.
All right.
There's two out on bond, and then this is
It looks like we've got 3 cases here. The 7520 case is possession of cocaine and possession of drug paraphernalia. Then there are 2 cases where he was out on pretrial release,
just out on bond.
or, I'm sorry, out on bond.
He was ROR'd on those cases.
He was ROR'd on those cases?
Yeah, he's out on release on his own reconnaissance.
Okay. ROR'd on those 2 cases. All right, what says counsel for Mr. Maldonado Cabret?
Your Honor, I would ask that the court take no action on the 2 cases he was out on bond on, and set bond in this case at set a reasonable bond in this case.
What says the state?
Your Honor, state will request that bond remain as set, and also if the defendant is released, no drugs.
All right, I'm not going to take any action in regards to the ROR cases, and I'm going to set bond at $1,000 for count 1 and $150 for count 2 with do not possess or consume any drugs. Any other issues on Mr. Maldonado Cabret?
No, Your Honor.
Hearing none, we're going to move on to Mr. Trent.
And you did say you appointed the PD.
I did find the police office. Go ahead and state your name for the record.
Jordan DeAndre Trent.
I'll go ahead and appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Mr. Trent?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Lydia Boudin?
All right, we're here today for a possession of Eutyline. What says counsel for Mr. Trent?
Your Honor, I would ask the court to take no action on his 2 other cases. Pursuant to, according to this, says no action per, I can't read the rest of it, one of the judges.
I don't have 2 other cases.
He's only in on a failure to
Oh,
appear.
I'm sorry.
Okay, just,
Yeah. I was gonna say,
He was seen on those other cases the other day, Your Honor.
Oh,
okay, so then
My mistake.
are we only here then on 1467, which is the possession charge?
Yeah, it's a failure to appear for a possession of utilone.
Okay. All right, what says counsel for Mr. Trent?
Your Honor, I would ask that bond remains set at $1,500.
All right, what says the state?
Your Honor, state requests bond remain as set by the warrant.
I'll find probable cause and keep bond at 1,500 then. All right, we'll move on to Mr. Fouts. Go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
Thomas Fouts.
I'll go ahead and appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Mr. Fouts?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Lydia Boudin?
All right, we're here today for 2 VOPs, VOP on a trespass and occupied structure, and VOP for trespass on property other than structure or conveyance. What says counsel for Mr. Fouts?
Your Honor, I would ask the court to set a bond in this case, but I think that legally the court has to keep it set at what the VOP judge set it at.
What says the state?
State will request bond be set, remain as to what was signed by the warrant.
The court's going to keep that as no bond, find probable cause. We've already appointed the PD's office. Is that my emergency duty call?
We can set, it just won't be today. But your attorney will set.
Next up, we have Mr. Lynch. Go ahead and, Ms. Lynch. Go ahead and state your name for the record.
Jonquil Lynch.
I'll go ahead and appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Ms. Lynch?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Lydia Boudin?
All right, we're here today in regards to 2 VOPs, one for battery on a Leo and one for resisting without. What's his counsel for Ms. Lynch?
Your Honor, I would just ask the court to keep bond as set.
What says the state?
Bond to remain as set by the warrant, Your Honor.
All right, the court's going to find probable cause and set no bond in regards to both cases. Next case is going to be Dylan Aaron. Go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
Dylan Aaron.
All right, I'll go ahead and appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Mr. Aaron?
Joshua Sinclair, Your Honor. I believed Corey Cohen had filed a notice of appearance
Oh,
in the court file.
is there an NOA?
He's no longer my lawyer.
Oh, he's no, oh, I'm
have a
sorry.
different one.
Oh, you have a different one?
Yes. John Goodry.
So is there a private attorney on this case or no?
Yes.
John Guidry? All right. Okay. You want to go ahead and give him a call? We're just going to give him a call real quick. You said John Guidry, is that correct?
Yes.
And the clerk is asking if it was Blair Jackson. It's not Blair.
Is it John?
It's John, right?
I had Corey going.
say we're going to put this case at the end, and then we're going to call back. So hopefully they can relay that message and say we're going to try calling back in about an hour, 40 minutes. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to recall this case because we're going to try to get in touch with your attorney, okay? All right, we're moving on to the next case. We've got Joshua Figueroa. Go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
Joshua Figueroa.
I've reviewed the application for criminal indigent status, and he does not qualify for appointment of the public defender. Does the public defender want to appear as a friend of the court for Mr. Figueroa here today?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, who's here? Go ahead and state your name for the record.
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Vidya Budan.
All right, we're here today for false imprisonment on a DV case and battery domestic violence. What says counsel, well, what says the friend of the court for Mr. Figueroa?
Your Honor, Mr. Figueroa has limited criminal history. His last conviction was back in 2014. He also qualifies for pretrial release. So that's what I would be asking for as a friend of the court.
What says the state?
Your Honor, state would request that bond remain at no bond. Also, no contact with the victim, maintain separate residences. Also, the previous battery involved the same victim, and I believe the victim would like to be heard today.
Let's go ahead and get the victim sworn in.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Go ahead and state your name, please.
Cynthia Gonzalez.
What would you like to tell the court?
I would like to have contact with him.
You do want to have contact.
We
with him,
have a
correct?
baby together. We have a 3-month-old. You know, having the no contact would be a little bit difficult. I know that sometimes things get out of hand, but we don't have to live in the same residency. I just want him to be there for my son. That's it.
Does defense have any questions based upon the victim's statement?
Just for clarification, you want to have contact with him. Do you want him to live with you, or do you want to maintain separate residences?
We can maintain separate residences.
Okay, but you do want to have contact with him?
Yes.
What says the state?
Your Honor, based on the previous incident, the state would still request no contact and maintain separate residences.
And have you had an opportunity to speak with a domestic violence advocate or Help Now or anyone else like that?
No.
Do you have any injunctions in place? Do you have a safety plan in place? Anything like that?
No.
What would you do if there were to be a domestic violence incident? How would you keep yourself safe?
I mean, I have a number that, you know, they did give me to call.
Here's what I'm going to do. Go ahead and reach out to Help Now or another victim advocate group, and they can assist you with coming up with a safety plan and things of that nature. So for right now, the court is going to find probable cause, and I'm going to set bond at $1,000 for each count. I'm still going to keep no contact with the victim until she's had an opportunity to speak with domestic violence and help advocate and get a safety plan in place and maintain separate residence. Now, he can always go to court and ask to change that from no contact to simply no hostile contact, but go ahead and do that in the meantime, okay?
Okay.
Any other issues on this case? And no. And is he requesting a one-time return to get his belongings?
Yes, Your Honor.
And I'll order he can return one time to get his belongings with the assistance of law enforcement.
And did you want me, I put it in the proposal, did it on attorney? Do you want me to also mark temporary?
You can go back.
I didn't appoint temporarily, just friend of the court, so he needs to get his own. He didn't qualify.
Call the police, tell them you need to go back. And they'll-
Right.
Yeah, you can't go back there.
Do we have Joseph Sebastian?
You gotta follow me to the court.
Joseph Sebastian.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
Sebastian Joseph Rivera.
So your last name was Rivera then?
Yeah.
Oh, for some reason I have your name as Joseph Rivera Sebastian, so that's wrong.
My middle name's Joseph.
Your middle name's Joseph.
Yes, ma'am.
So your name is Sebastian Rivera then?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll go ahead and appoint the Public Defender's Office to represent you. Who's here on behalf of the defense?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Vidya Budan?
And do we have a victim present as well today?
Yes, Your Honor.
Let's go and get her sworn in.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I swear.
Go ahead and state your name, please.
Destiny Cuevas Leon.
Okay, and what would you like to tell the court?
Well, I would first like to tell
Just try to speak as loud as you can because we've got a lot of noise here.
Okay, so I would like to, first off, not press charges. I would still like to have contact with him as well. Sebastian is a very good guy. He's great. It's just that he has a drinking problem, and that's initially why I guess I called the cops in the first place, because I want him to get help for it. I genuinely care about him, and I really do love him, and I just want him to get help, I guess.
What says counsel for Mr. Rivera?
Your Honor, given Mr. Rivera's limited criminal history, there's resisting without violence and disorderly conduct. Both were juvenile convictions. He has no adult history. There is no incidences of previous domestic violence. I'm sorry, there is one juvenile incident that I can see on here. But given the victim's statements and Mr. Rivera's lack of history, I would be asking that he be released on a form of non-monetary release, or if the court is not inclined to do that, to set bond at a very low amount with $1,000 and on one count and 100 on the rest. I'm sorry. He has 3 cases, Your Honor.
Yes, I've got battery domestic violence for 2021 MM 4400. For 2021 CF 7540, I've got battery on a Leo and resisting without violence. And for 2021 CF 7543, I've got battery on a Leo.
Yes, Your Honor. So on the battery domestic violence case, he is entitled to a bond. I would be asking for a form of non-monetary release, with the conditions being no hostile contact with the victim. Alternatively, I'd ask for a $1,000 bond. And then on case 7543AO, I'd be asking for a $500 bond. And then 7540, I'm sorry, that was 7543, 7540AO. I'd be asking for a $500 bond on the battery on Leo and a $100 bond on the resisting officer with violence.
What says the state?
Your Honor, state has no objection to setting a bond on all his cases. I don't see any violent history unless pretrial release has any information on that. However, state would still request no contact with the victim and maintain separate residences, as well as no alcohol if he is released.
Ma'am, did you have an opportunity to speak to Help Now or a victim advocate in regards to a safety plan?
No, I have my dad's house to stay at, but
You have what?
I have not, but I do have a place to go, but I would really want to request so I could keep contact with him, because even if he doesn't want to be in this relationship or do anything like that, I still want him to get better because I genuinely care about him.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to find probable cause in regards to these 3 cases. For the domestic violence battery, I am going to order no contact for right now, but I'll change that potentially to a no hostile contact once you've had an opportunity to speak to Help Now or domestic violence advocate. What he can do is he can go in front of the judge who's assigned to this case and ask to change it from no contact to no hostile contact. I just want to make sure that you have a safety plan or something in place in case something were to happen. Okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to find probable cause in all 3 cases. For the battery, it's going to be $1,000, no contact with the victim, maintain separate residence, and no alcohol. In regards to 2021 CF 7540, I'm going to keep the bond at $2,500 for count 1 and $150 for count 2. And in regards to 2021 CF 7543, bond $2,500. Any other issues on this case?
No, Your Honor.
All right, hearing none. We're going to move on to Ms. Warner.
So it would be 10%.
Go ahead and state your name for the record.
Angelique Warner.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Ms. Warner?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Vidya Budan?
And do we have a victim present in regards to this case?
Yes, Your Honor.
Let's go ahead and get her sworn in.
Raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Ma'am, what would you like to tell the court?
I just want to start by.
I'm sorry, if you can speak just as loud as you can, it's kind of loud in here.
I just want to start by saying I don't want to press charges. I just would rather for her to just leave the residence. I don't mind the contact. I just rather for her to just, grow from this. We go through things, but I just rather for her to just leave the residence and press no charges.
What says counsel for Ms. Warner?
Your Honor, given what we just heard, I would ask that there be a no hostile contact order, maintain separate residences. Ms. Warner has, as far as I can see on here, no criminal history, not even any arrests whatsoever. Your Honor, also, I do have a PC argument about the aggravated assault.
There's three charges. There's battery, domestic violence, ag assault with a firearm, domestic violence, and then a false imprisonment in regards to domestic violence. In regards to your probable cause argument, is as to which count?
Right, count 2, aggravated assault with a firearm.
All right, what's your argument?
My argument is that in the arrest affidavit, it says that victim was tapped with an object a couple of times. She didn't actually see the gun when she was being tapped. And then there's an allusion to a sort of vague threat of, I'll get you when you're done with work. But there's, as far as I recall, there's nothing showing that she actually pointed the firearm at the victim or otherwise threatened her with it.
What's his state?
Your Honor, the state argues that the victim observed the defendant holding a black handgun at her side, and she then placed it at her back. As she saw the handgun, she knew it was that she felt that tapped her on the back just moments prior, and coupled with the defendant stating, "I'm going to spare you until you get off of work," I find that there is probable cause that the victim was in a well-founded fear that the defendant may use the handgun to harm her. That she saw the handgun, she stated that the defendant might try and shoot her. She stated that the defendant stated that I'm going to spare you until you get off of work, and the victim stated that she was in fear for her life. And Your Honor, law enforcement also recovered the gun.
All right, I'm going to find probable cause in regards to all three counts. I'm going to order no contact, just because in regards to, there needs to be a safety plan in place. You need to meet with a help advocate or another domestic violence advocate in order to create a safety plan if you want to continue to have contact with the defendant. So I'm going to find probable cause in all three counts. For count 1, it's going to be $1,000. Count 2, it's going to be $2,500. Count 3, it's going to be $1,000. No contact with the victim, maintain separate residence, no weapons or firearms. Any other issues on this case?
No, Your Honor.
All right, hearing none, we're going to move on to Mr. Baisden. I'm just going to throw these. All right. You okay? Or you want to shred them? All right. Go ahead and state your name for the record, Mr. Baisden.
Marvin Baisden.
I'll go ahead and, well, actually, no, I reviewed this affidavit and I find that he does not qualify for appointment of the public defender. Does the public defender want to be a friend of the court here today?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And go ahead and state your name for the record.
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Vidya Budan for the state.
All right, we're here today for a battery. It's a domestic violence case. What says friend of the court on behalf of Mr. Baisden?
Mr. Baisden is entitled to a bond. He does have a below average risk assessment. I would therefore ask that bond be set at $1,000.
And I don't see a victim in regards to this case. Do we have the state?
I don't think we have a victim present, Your Honor.
All right, the court's going to find probable cause, set the bond at $1,000, no contact with the victim. Any other issues in regards to this case?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Next up, we have Deshaun Blathwood. Go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Deshaun Blathwood.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Mr. Blathwood?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Vidya Budan.
All right, we're here today for a battery. What says counsel for Mr. Blathwood?
Mr. Blathwood is entitled to a bond. He is below average risk. He has limited criminal history, looks like out-of-state assault. But that's the only thing that it could even be considered remotely violent, and that's all the way back from 2014. He's employed full-time at the Cheesecake Factory. I would ask that the court set bond at $1,000.
What says the state?
Your Honor, no objection to a bond. However, the state would request no contact with the victim and maintain separate residences.
Court's going to find probable cause. Go ahead, attorney for Mr. Blathwood.
Your Honor, may I have 1 moment? So please stay together. I have no family.
John, no, it's a victim.
Oh, I did not see a victim here.
I apologize, Your Honor.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I can barely hear you, but yes.
You do swear to tell the truth, the whole
Yes.
truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yeah, it's very hard to hear in here too, so just speak into the microphone as loud as you can.
Okay,
Go ahead
no
and state your
problem.
name for the record, please.
You said what? I'm sorry?
State your name.
Madeline Hernandez.
Okay, and what would you like to tell the court?
Okay, first of all, like she said, I'm not a victim because he didn't do nothing to me at all. Like we was just having a normal conversation, and he did not touch me. He didn't hit me at all. So I think this been kind of extra for us to have to pay money because we was only having a conversation. And he hold my hand because he's my boyfriend. So he has the right to touch me. I was never scared or I was, in fear at all. So I feel that this been kind of extra, like a waste of time for me.
So you're saying he never touched you?
Never at all. Not even like, and it wasn't even an argument. It was just a conversation. The girl that called, she was just, I don't even know what was wrong with her. So for him to like have to pay, we have kids together, and he have to live in my house. He can't go nowhere. So this like this thing saying that we can't live together, that's extra. We never been in trouble at all. We have never called 911. If I would have feel in fear, I would have called 911 myself. I wasn't. So this in reality, like I said, this is a waste of time.
You don't have any problem calling 911 if something were to happen?
I at all. Like we never argue. We was having a conversation, just normal conversation.
What says counsel for Mr. Blathwood?
Your Honor, based upon that, it quite frankly doesn't seem like any criminal activity occurred. She clearly is able to handle herself. She knows what to do if there is an incident. I would ask that Mr. Blathwood be ROR.
And can I say something? I'm sorry. I think I said it already, but we have kids together, and it's been like he's not going nowhere. He's staying in my house anyways. So like this saying that bond for what? He never touched me. Like this is like just stealing money from us. We're not paying anything, and he's not staying here.
What says the state?
Your Honor, based on the report, it says a witness observed the male hit and choke the female. Officer ID'd the male as the defendant and the victim as the female, so the state will still maintain
He never touched me.
asking for no contact and to maintain separate residences until we can speak further with the victim and get more information.
Like I said, he never touched me at all.
Have you had an opportunity to speak with Help Now or any kind of domestic violence advocate?
If I want, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
Have you had an opportunity to speak to Help Now or any different?
I don't need that. That's the thing. Like this being extra, I don't need it. Like this is getting me mad because like this is extra. You like messing up with my money right now.
Here's what the court's going to do. The court's going to find probable cause, release them on ROR, no hostile contact with the victim. Any other issues on this case?
No, Your Honor. You're good. You're good. Don't fight.
All right, so he has to have no hostile contact.
What is that? I don't know what is
He
that.
can have contact, but he can't have hostile contact.
What is hostile?
Hitting, pushing.
Oh, he have never touched me.
I've ordered he can have contact, just no hostile contact.
Okay, and then the bond? We don't have no money.
I've ROR'd him.
What is that?
Released on his own recognizance.
Thank you.
All right. Let's go ahead and call the next case. Do we have Evan Craig?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
Evan Craig.
Okay. I've reviewed the application for criminal engine status, but I find that you do not qualify for appointment of the public defender. Can the public defender appear as a friend of the court for Mr. Craig?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, who's here for the state?
Vidya Budan for the state.
All right, we're here today for a battery domestic violence. Do we have a victim on, for Mr. Evan Craig's case? Any victims?
I don't believe so, Your Honor.
All right. What says friend of the court in regards to Mr. Craig?
Your Honor, Mr. Craig has no criminal history as far as I can tell from the sheet I got from PTR. He's employed full-time at racetrack. He's also, he also qualifies for PTR, so I would ask that the court release him under the supervision of PTR.
What says the state?
Your Honor, the state has no objection to a bond. The state requests no contact with victim and to maintain separate residence.
Find probable cause, set the bond at $1,000, no contact with the victim, maintain separate residence. Does he want to go there and get his belongings one time with law enforcement?
Yes, Your
All
Honor.
right, I'll go ahead and order that as well. No contact, $1,000 bond, maintain separate residence, get his belongings one time with law enforcement.
Hire an attorney if they file charges.
All right, well, let's put that aside for a little bit. We don't have the Portuguese interpreter yet, so we're gonna skip Mr. Forjaz and come back to him when we get a chance to get the interpreter. So we're gonna move on. I heard somebody needed, I think the victim needed the interpreter.
Yes, I believe so, Your Honor.
Okay, so when we get the interpreter, we'll call this case. Let's move on to the next one. Do we have Hans Roberto Lewis? Mr. Hans Roberto Lewis, state your name for the record, please.
Hans Roberto Lewis.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Mr. Lewis?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Vidya Budan.
We're here today in regards to battery, dating violence. What says counsel for Mr. Lewis?
Your Honor, Mr. Lewis is entitled to a bond. I would ask that the court set bond at $1,000.
What says the state?
Your Honor, no objection to a bond. State is requesting no contact with victim, maintain separate residences.
All right, the court's gonna order, I'm gonna find probable cause, $1,000 bond, no contact with the victim, maintain separate residence. Does he want to go to the residence one time with law enforcement to get his stuff?
Yes, Your Honor.
And I'll order that as well. Any other issues in regards to Mr. Lewis?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Let's go ahead and call the next case. Is his last name Luna or Lund?
It's Luna.
Luna. Okay, thank you.
Your Honor, the victim is present.
Thank you. All right, go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
Johansson Wilmer Luna.
I'll go ahead and appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Mr. Luna?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Vidya Budan.
I believe we have a victim. Can we go ahead and get the victim sworn in?
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
My name is William Luna.
What would you like to tell the court?
Okay, I'm here basically to testify and for the record that yesterday's event that happened in my house was because of his condition. He has a mental condition. He was diagnosed as bipolar, and he's just going through his problem right now. And when I called, I was hoping that they will take him to a mental institution and not to jail. So I would like to please plead to you, Judge, he needs to be evaluated. He needs assistance. He needs help with his mental condition. Just like any other patient that has cancer, he needs assistance. He needs help. He's been struggling with this for a long time, and we have been struggling as well for a long time. And I'm begging you to please help my son to get assistance for his mental condition.
The court is limited in what the court can order. I can't order any type of, I can't order the mental health counseling that you are requesting right now. That might be something to look at later on in the future, but for right now, counsel for Mr. Luna. Any arguments?
Your Honor, may I ask him one question?
Go ahead.
Do you plan on bonding him out or posting his bond?
Well, do we need to do that? Because yesterday's event was not,
Well, I guess what I'm asking you is if the court sets a monetary bond, would it be you that would end up paying the money?
yes, it would be, but it also depends on the money, because I don't have money. I've been laid off 2 months ago, and right now I'm struggling financially, looking for a job, and plus with his condition, as you can see, it's very hard. It's very hard for me and my wife to go through this.
What says the state?
Your Honor, state understands the victim's story, but however, due to the history of violent charges, I see several mentioned here. I don't know if they were formally charged, but due to the history, the state would still request no contact and to maintain separate residences. The state has no objection to setting a bond.
Your Honor, may I be heard?
All right, here's what the court's going to do. For 2021 MM 4394, I'm going to find probable cause. I'm going to ROR him with no hostile contact with anyone. I'm going to take no action in regards to 2020 MM 8049.
Thank you, Judge.
It's going to be released today.
Okay, thank you so much.
We have Brandon Marvel. Go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
Brandon Marvel.
Who's here? I'll go ahead and appoint the Public Defender's Office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Mr. Marvel?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Vidya Budan.
All right, we're here today for battery, domestic violence. What says counsel for Mr. Marvel?
Your Honor, Mr. Marvel is entitled to a bond. I would be asking that the court set bond at $1,000.
What says the state?
Your Honor, I believe he has a previous domestic battery charge. Also, the Leo observed injuries on the victim. State is requesting no contact and to maintain separate residences.
I see we do not have a victim in regards to this case.
Yes, Your Honor.
Court's going to find probable cause, set bond at $1,000, no contact with the victim, maintain separate residence. Does he want to go to the residence one time with law enforcement to get his belongings?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, I'll go ahead and order that. Maintain separate residence and go with law enforcement one time.
Get it down.
All right, do we have Mr. Norwood? Go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
Excuse me?
Go ahead and state your name for the record.
Donald Glenn Norwood, Jr.
I'll go ahead and appoint the Public Defender's Office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Mr. Norwood?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Vidya Budan.
All right, we're here today for a battery domestic violence. I don't see a victim in regards to this case. What says counsel for Mr. Norwood?
Your Honor, Mr. Norwood has, looks like one out-of-state conviction for possession of, I actually don't know what the charge is. It says liquor possession. I'm not sure. And then he has been arrested for one previous domestic violence incident, although it doesn't say whether it's the same or different victim. Your Honor, I would ask that he is entitled to bond. I would ask that he be given a $1,000 bond.
What says the state?
Your Honor, state is requesting no contact with victim and to maintain separate residences.
Find probable cause, order no contact, $1,000 bond, maintain separate residences. Does he want to go back one time to get his belongings with law enforcement?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, I'll allow that. $1,000. Yep, point the PD. Next up, we have Miss Roman Ramos. Go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
Amy Roman Ramos.
I'll go ahead and appoint the Public Defender's Office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Miss Roman Ramos?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Vidya Budan.
We're here today for a battery domestic violence case. I don't see a victim here. What says counsel for Miss Roman Ramos?
Miss Roman Ramos, she has, looks like the only criminal history she has is she's on pretrial intervention for fail to return leased property out of Lake County. Other than that, she has no other history, nothing even remotely close to this. I would ask that the court, she doesn't qualify for PTR, nonetheless, I'd ask the court to release her on non-monetary conditions with no contact and maintain separate residences with one time, being allowed to return one time to get her property. I'd also point out, look, she's been employed at Disney for 5 years, so she has a steady job.
What says the state?
Your Honor, based on the report indicating that the officer observed injuries on the victim, the state will request that the court set a bond, also no contact with the victim, and to maintain separate residences.
I'll find probable cause, set a bond at $1,000, no contact with the victim, maintain separate residence, and you can go with law enforcement one time to pick up your belongings. Next up, we have Mr. Villamizar. Yes, ma'am. All right, I reviewed your application. You do not qualify for appointment of the public defender. Go ahead and state your name for the record.
My name is Danilo Villamizar.
Can the public defender's office be a friend of the court to Mr. Villamizar today?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead and state your name for the record.
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Vidya Budan.
We're here today for a battery domestic violence charge. What says counsel for Mr. Villamizar, or friend of court for Mr. Villamizar?
He has no criminal history whatsoever. He's been employed for the last 21 years. He's low risk. I would ask that the court release him under the supervision of PTR with no contact and maintain separate residences with a one-time exception to go back with law enforcement to get his property.
What says the state?
Your Honor, state is requesting no contact with victim, maintain separate residences.
We're going to find probable cause, set bond at $1,000, no contact with the victim, maintain separate residence, and you can go back with law enforcement one time to get your belongings, or personal belongings. Next up, we have Mr. Zayas Valentin.
Yes, you want.
Go ahead and state your name for the record.
Louis Zayas Valentin.
All right, I'll go ahead and appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Mr. Zayas Valentin?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Vidya Budan.
We're here today for a battery domestic violence. What says counsel for Mr. Zayas Valentin?
Your Honor, I would ask that the court set bond at $1,000, no contact, no return with the one-time, maintain separate residences with one-time exception to get his property.
What says the state?
Your Honor, based on there being 2 previous incidents of battery with the same victim, the state will request a higher bond. State also requests no contact with victim and to maintain separate residences.
Set a bond at $1,000, no contact with the victim, maintain separate residence. You can go and get your personal belongings one time with law enforcement. All right, next up, we need William Baisden. All right, we got a refusal.
Yeah, you could bond out.
All right, we've got a refusal for Mr. William Baisden. Are you Mr. Baisden?
Oh, no.
All right, we've got a refusal for Mr. Baisden. I'll go ahead and appoint the public defender's office. What's his counsel for Mr. Baisden?
I'd ask he reset. We'll give him one more chance, Your Honor.
All right, we'll go ahead and reset Mr. Baisden to tomorrow. Next up, we have Mr. Bentley. Go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
Hey, no, my name is Javor Bentley.
Okay, I'll go ahead and appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Who's here for Mr. Bentley?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here on behalf of the state?
Vidya Budan.
All right, we're here today for a possession of cocaine with intent to sell or deliver with a firearm, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, possession or ammunition by a convicted felon, sale and delivery of fentanyl, possession of cocaine, and possession of a firearm with a serial number removed. What says counsel for Mr. Bentley?
Your Honor, I'm going to start by asking the court to RR Mr. Bentley on the possession of cocaine count. That's duplicative with the possession of cane with intent to sell. He shouldn't be required to pay bond twice for essentially the same substance. Additionally, the possession of firearm by a convicted felon or the possession of ammunition by a convicted felon, I'd ask the court to RR him on one of those, as legally he can only be charged with one, not both. As to the rest, I'd ask the court to take into account Mr. Bentley's indigent status and to set bond at $1,500 on the possession of cane with intent to sell, and then $100 on the remaining counts that aren't ROR'd.
What says the state?
Your Honor, state will request that bond remain as set. As far as the charges go, the intent to sell is because the amount that law enforcement recovered He is a convicted felon, so count 2, and he was in possession of a firearm. They found, I believe, 23 or 25 baggies of fentanyl. And the serial number on the firearm was removed. So state will request that bond remain as set.
Court's going to find probable cause. I'm going to keep bond at $100,000 for count 1 and make counts 2 through 6 $100 each.
Your Honor, just for the record, I am going to have to object to that bond being excessive.
And I'm going to go ahead and also order no weapons or firearms. Any other issues in regards to this case?
No, Your Honor.
Next up, we have Mr. Deanna Dolores.
That's a
Do we have Constance Deanna Dolores?
Miss Clardy, Your Honor.
Oh, it's an AKA. Okay, so is her name Constance Clarity then?
Yes.
Okay. Constance Clarity, go ahead and state your name for the record.
Constance Diane George Clarity.
And I'm going to go ahead and appoint the Public Defender's Office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Miss Clarity?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Vidya Budan.
All right, we're here today for an aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. What says counsel for Miss Clarity?
Your Honor, I have a PC challenge to the charge. It's aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. The pipe in and of itself is not designed to inflict death or great bodily harm, so it would have to be used in that manner. The evidence shows that there was a small red mark that does not indicate that it was therefore used in a manner likely to cause death or great bodily harm, so I'd ask the court to find PC for simple battery but not aggravated battery.
What says the state?
Your Honor, state would argue that the pipe could cause harm to the victim. The defendant struck the victim 4 times. He was struck on his right shoulder, left forearm. He was able to, I'm sorry.
I'm reading that it says this pipe was used to strike at the upper body in locations that were inches away from his head.
Yes, Your Honor. There's a substantial likelihood that it would have caused great bodily harm or death from a traumatic brain injury, being that when the defendant struck the victim, it was close to his head,
The court's going to find probable cause. Set the bond at $3,500, no contact with the victim. Any other stipulations, state?
No, Your Honor.
Your Honor, if I may be heard on the amount of bond set,
Yes.
she has absolutely no criminal history. She's been arrested for possession of cocaine, possession of drug paraphernalia. She's abjectly indigent. And Your Honor, even the evidence in this case, I understand the court found probable cause, but
Based upon the allegations, these are serious allegations. So I'm going to keep bond at $3,500.
just,
Someone could have been killed in this case. So I'm going to keep the bond at what it is. All right, next up we have, I'm going to try to pronounce this. Albernosi?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
Your Honor, my name is Eamon Albernosi. Thank you, Your Honor.
I'll go ahead and appoint the Public Defender's Office to represent you. Who's here on behalf of Mr. Albernosi?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Vidya Budan.
All right, we're here today for attempted robbery with a deadly weapon and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. What says counsel for Mr. Albernosi?
Mr. Albernosi is entitled to a bond under the Constitution of the state of Florida. These are not punishable by life felonies. It's an F2 and an F3, so the court must send a bond. He has absolutely no criminal history. His risk assessment is below average. I would ask the court to set bond at $2,500 on count 1 and $1,000 on count 2.
What says the state?
Your Honor, I believe this is for a warrant, so the state will request that no bond remain as set by the warrant.
Warrant indicates that it may be modified by first appearance judge. What says the state?
Your Honor, state would still request that bond remain at no bond based on the nature of the charges.
Your Honor, if I may be heard, the state has absolutely no.
I'm fighting a bond. So
yes, Your
the issue is, what's the bond amount going to be? So state,
State will request a high bond, Your Honor, based on there being a possible victim and the nature of the charges.
the court's going to find probable cause for count 1 and count 2 and set bond at $5,000 for count 1, $5,000 for count 2, no contact with the victim, and do not possess weapons or firearms. Any other issues on this case?
No, Your Honor. Yes.
Next up, we have Mr. Hackinson. Go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
Joseph Hawkinson.
I'm going to go ahead and appoint the public defense officer to represent you. Who's here on behalf of Mr. Hackinson?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Lydia Boudan.
All right, we're here today for possession of substance with intent to sell, possession of cocaine, and possession of cannabis. What says counsel for Mr. Hackinson?
Your Honor, just to start, this isn't a PC argument, but the state of Florida has not been filing charges on cannabis cases. The possession of controlled substance with intent to sell is cannabis. So I would ask the court, because the state of Florida is not charging these types of offenses, to ROR him on counts 1 and 3. As to the possession of cocaine, Mr. Hackinson does have criminal history, but his last conviction was over a decade and a half ago, back in 2005, for a drug offense. So I would ask the court, given that all this is drug offenses, to release him on pretrial release so that he may be able to get out. He's also employed at this time full-time at USIC Infrastructure Co. There is no benefit to, Your Honor, may I have one moment?
Yes.
How much can you afford?
I don't know, like maybe, that's a problem. I'm the only one that lives here. I don't know how to even contact them. Try.
Your Honor, I ask the court to set bond at $1,000 on count 2 and ROR him on counts 1 and 3.
What says the state?
Your Honor, state will request bond to remain the same. The report reflects that they found 21 plastic baggies of marijuana that tested positive, field tested positive, 25 baggies of fentanyl that field tested, I believe also.
He's not charged with fentanyl, is that correct?
That's the possession of controlled substance with intent to sell, I believe, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor, that's the co-defendant, I believe.
Talking about Mr. Hackinson?
Yes, he has a co-defendant who was also arrested for the fentanyl. Mr. Hackinson was not.
What says the state?
Your Honor, a moment. Joseph. Your Honor, I believe that law enforcement charged both with possession of the fentanyl and the marijuana baggies as listed in the charging affidavit for both.
Where does it state that specifically?
It says,
Page you on?
I believe I'm on page 3 of 4.
Okay, page 3 of 4, okay.
This is Mr. Hackinson. After it lists Florida statute 790.23, second degree felony. Joseph was knowingly in actual or constructive possession of more than 20 grams of a mixture of cannabis, of a controlled substance, and it goes on to say with intent to sell or deliver said controlled substance. Joseph was knowingly in an actual and constructive possession of cocaine, including any solid compound, etc. He was charged with possession of a controlled substance with intent to sell, possession of cocaine, and possession of cannabis.
Your Honor, it's
I'm just still not seeing where it says he was in possession of the fentanyl. What line does it say that?
I believe that's on page 2, Your Honor. Sorry. I then searched Joseph towards the bottom. Joseph had a plastic baggie weighed less than a gram. He had a hollowed out chapstick inside his pants. The hollowed out chapstick had 4 pieces of crack cocaine rocks. The crack Cocaine rocks tested positive to cocaine, weighed 0.4 grams. Out of an excited utterance, Joseph said the crack cocaine was his. He uses it to lace marijuana. Joseph also said, I may find an additional marijuana bag inside the vehicle. I believe that's the bag that they found the 21 plastic baggies inside, individually packed in a manner that is for selling or for sale. And the green leafy substance tested positive. The green fanny pack, the trunk also had a black and white backpack. It had a clear plastic. I'm sorry, Your Honor, I think I skipped over.
The last two sentences.
Yes.
The trunk also had a black and white backpack. It had a clear plastic baggie with white powder residue inside, the same consistency as the fentanyl found earlier. Joseph had multiple dollar bills on his person.
So his possession of controlled substance charges going towards with intent to sell is going towards the baggies of marijuana, Your Honor, not the fentanyl, I believe.
So what are you requesting in regards to bond?
Your Honors, they would request that bond remain as set.
All right, here's what the court's going to do. The court's going to find probable cause for all three counts. I'm going to set bond at count 1 as $1,500. I'm going to set bond at count 2 as $2,000. Bond for count 3 as $500. Any other issues on this case?
No, Your Honor.
All right, let's move forward with the next case. We've got Mr. Joseph. 500. Go ahead and state your name for the record, please. Mr. Claude Joseph.
Claude Joseph.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Mr. Joseph?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Video Budan.
All right, we're here today in regards to a capias for a sexual battery. What says counsel for Mr. Joseph?
Your Honor, I don't believe the court has the authority to modify the capias.
What says the state?
Your Honor, yes, state would request that the bond remain as what is set by the warrant.
Court's going to find probable cause. Bond is no amount, so no bond. Next up, we have Richard King. Go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
Richard King.
I'll go ahead and appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Mr. King?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Video Budan.
All right, we're here today for possession of cocaine and possession of drug paraphernalia. Both of them are failure to appears. What says counsel for Mr. King?
Your Honor, I would ask that the court just keep bond as set pursuant to the warrant.
What says the state?
Your Honor, state will request bond to remain as set by the warrant.
Okay, of course, going to find probable cause. Bond for count 1 is $2,000. Bond for count 2 is $300.
I understand you.
Next up, we have Charles Nelson. Go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
My name is Charles Frederick Nelson.
Go ahead and appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Mr. Nelson?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Video Budan.
All right, we're here today for a violation of the pretrial release. What says counsel for Mr. Nelson?
Your Honor, I'm sorry. I believe he was just arrested. I didn't realize this was a violation of pretrial release.
I think we've got 2 cases here.
Is Charles Nelson?
Charles Nelson, we've got 2 cases. We've got 2021 CF 7511, which is using a fictitious name on a driver's license, possession of methamphetamine, possession of burglary tools, trespass on property after warning, possession of drug paraphernalia, and petty theft with 2 priors. And he also has another case, 2021 CF 166, where he's on pretrial release.
Yes, Your Honor. So as far as case 166 goes, that is a simple possession case. I would ask the court to take no action on that. As far as the 7511 case goes, I would ask the court to ROR him on count 1. That statute specifically talks about using a fake name in an application to get a driver's license. There's no evidence of that whatsoever. The arrest report says that he told the cops that he found the driver's license in a garbage, so that there's no probable cause for count one. As for the rest of the counts, I would ask the court to set bond at $1,000 on count two and $100 on the remaining counts.
What says the state in regards to the probable cause argument for count one?
Your Honor, the defendant identified himself as Austin Porter, and then officers found the ID, and then the defendant spontaneously uttered that his name is Charles Nelson. And the state will request a bond to remain as set.
Court's going to find probable cause on all 6 counts. Count one bond is $2,500. Counts for 2 through 6 are going to be $100 each. I'm going to take no action on 2021 CF 166.
Go on bond on my.
Yeah, you're good.
Can I get a bond now?
Yes.
Next up, we have Ms. Patterson. Go ahead and state your name for the record.
Alicia Patterson.
I'll go ahead and appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Ms. Patterson?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Vidya Budan.
Right, we're here today for fleeing or attempting to elude with lights and sirens activated. What says counsel for Ms. Patterson?
Your Honor, Ms. Patterson is low risk. She has no criminal convictions. Her only arrest was for a domestic battery, which is not in any way similar to this case. She does qualify for PTR, so I would ask that the court release her on PTR as to this case.
What says the state?
Your Honor, the state has no objection to setting a bond on her cases.
Find probable cause, set bond at $1,000.
Your Honor, is that?
She has 2 other charges, Your Honor.
Those are the no motor vehicle registrations and knowingly and willfully abusing, misusing a temporary tag. That's for 2021 CT 571 and 2021 CT 572. It says counsel for Ms. Patterson in regards to those 2 cases.
Your Honor, I would ask that she be RO'd on those counts. Those are very minor charges.
What says the state?
Your Honor, as they will request that bond remain as set.
Our ROR on those 2 cases.
Thank you, Judge.
Next up, we have Mr. Payne. Go ahead and state your name for the record.
Say your name.
Marcus Antonio Payne.
Go ahead and appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Mr. Payne?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Vidya Budan.
All right, we're here today for, looks like 4 counts. RICO, conspiracy to commit racketeering, possession of a weapon or ammunition by convicted felon, and possession of a weapon or ammunition by a convicted felon. What says counsel for Mr. Payne?
Your Honor, I'm going to ask for a significant bond reduction. The bond right now is set at over $250,000. That is exorbitantly high. Mr. Payne does have a criminal history, but a bond at that high is tantamount to setting bond, no bond at all. I'd ask the court to reduce it to $75,000 in total, so $50,000 on count 1, $25,000 on count 2, and then $1,000 on count 3 and 4.
What says the state?
Your Honor, state will request that bond remain as set by the judge that signed the warrant.
Court's going to find probable cause. I'm going to keep the bonds as they are. He can always file a motion to modify in front of the judge who's going to be having this case. Count 1, $500,000. Count 2, $250,000. Count 3, $10,000. Count 4 at $10,000. Next up, we have Mr. Sellers. You got 2 cases involving Mr. Sellers. Go ahead and state your name for the record.
Herman Sellers.
Go ahead and appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Who's here on behalf of Mr. Sellers?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Vidya Budan.
All right, we're here for 2 things. We're here for 2021 CF 7219, petty theft with 2 priors. 2019 CF 10596 is a failure to appear for a petty theft with 2 priors. What says counsel for Mr. Sellers?
Your Honor, I'd ask the court set a bond at $1,000 in each case.
What says the state?
Your Honor, state would ask to have the bond remain as set by the judge who signed the warrants.
I have a no bond for the failure to appear. Is that what you're requesting for 2019 CF 10596?
Yes, Your Honor. And in CF 7219, $2,500.
Court's going to find probable cause for both cases. I'm going to set bond in regards to both cases at $2,500 each. Do not return to the scene, no contact with the victim. Any other issues on this case?
No, Your Honor.
We have Kayashara Singleton. Okay, we've got a refusal. What says Public Defender's Office? What do you want to do with this case?
Your Honor, that's if we could reset this for tomorrow.
All right, we're going to go ahead and reset this one for tomorrow. All right, next up, we've got Derek Smith. Go ahead and state your name for the record.
Derek Smith.
I'll go ahead and appoint the Public Defender's Office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Mr. Smith?
Joshua Sinclair.
All right, we're here today for 3 cases. We've got a no valid driver's license, a resisting officer with violence, assault on a law enforcement officer, and a possession of cannabis under 20 grams. What says counsel for Mr. Smith regarding those 3 cases?
Your Honor, I'd ask that Mr. Smith be RO'd on the no valid driver's license and possession of cannabis charges. As far as the resisting officer with violence, I would ask that bond be set at $1,000 and $100 on the assault on law enforcement officer.
What says the state?
Your Honor, state would request that bond remain as set on all cases and counts.
For the no valid DL and possession of cannabis, I'll ROR. And for the resisting officer with violence, I'll set bond at $1,000 and assault on law enforcement $100. And I find probable cause for all counts and all charges. That's going to stay $1,000 for count 1, $100 for count 2.
And I believe he has a possession of cannabis case, Your Honor?
Yes,
Did I miss that
ROR
one?
on that one.
Oh, okay.
Next up, we've got Tony Smith. Go ahead and state your name for the record.
My name is Tony Smith.
We'll go ahead and appoint the Public Defender's Office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Mr. Smith?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Vidya Budan.
All right, we're here today for a burglary of a conveyance and a petty theft. What says counsel for Mr. Smith?
Your Honor, my recollection is this is a failure to appear and bond is set at $1,500 on count 1 and ROR on count 2. I'd ask the court to just keep bond at that amount.
Yes, I see that. What says the state?
Your Honor, state would request that bonds be set as what's stated by the warrant.
We're just going to find probable cause. Bond for count 1 is $1,500, count 2 ROR. Next up, we've got Shaquilla Ward. Go ahead and state your name for the record.
Yes, my name is Shaquilla Latrice Ward.
I'll go ahead and appoint the Public Defender's Office to represent you. Who's here on behalf of Ms. Ward?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Vidya Budan.
All right, we're here for possession of Utilone and a violation of condition of pretrial release in regards to a controlled substance. What says counsel for Ms. Ward?
Your Honor, for the possession of Utilone case,
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
The-
I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry, for the possession of Utilone case, I'd ask that the court set bond at $1,000. On the violation of condition of pretrial release, I believe it's a positive drug test, so I'd ask that the court set bond at $1,000 on that also.
What says the state?
Your Honor, for 21 CF 4322, the state would just request that bond remain as set by the warrant.
What about for 2020 CF 15205?
I don't believe I have that oh, no, this is weird. What are the charges on that one?
Violation of it's a VOP.
Oh, yes, so, the judge signed, on the warrant as bond to, the state would just request that it remain, Your Honor.
All right, the court's going to find probable cause. I'm going to set the bond for $1,000 for possession of alone, and I'm not going to set a bond for the violation of trial release. No bond.
She was also out on bond, Your Honor. Are you taking any action on that? It's
I'm not
20,
going to take any action on 2021 CF 1470. All right, next up we have Andrew Ware. All right, you want to reset this for tomorrow?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, we'll reset Andrew Ware for tomorrow. Piece of behavior. Next up, we have Raymond S.
Scarmet.
Okay, go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
Raymond S. Scarmet.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for the defendant?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Lydia Boudin.
All right, we're here today for a failure to appear on a trespass.
Your Honor, the court minutes reflected that the plea offer was adjudication of guilt, credit time served, no return, court cost of prosecution. I would ask if we could enter that plea.
I'm not doing a plea, but you can ask for an ROR.
I would be asking for ROR then, Your Honor.
What says the state?
Your Honor, the state would request that bond remain as set by the warrant.
Court's going to find probable cause and do an ROR. I'm not going to take any action on 2021 CO 100. ROR.
Thank you, Judge.
Do we have Chester Scott?
Refuse, Your Honor.
You bonded out?
Refused.
Or he's a refusal? What do you want to do?
If we could reset him, Your Honor.
All right, we're going to set him for tomorrow. He refused. Mr. Scott refused, so we're going to recall him tomorrow. See if he wants to come to court. Next up, we have Mr. Chenier.
C. Hunter.
How you say it again?
C. Hunter.
Thank you. All right, go ahead and say your name for the record. Full name.
Oh, Salim C. Hunter.
I'm going to go ahead and appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Mr. CNR?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Lydia Boudin.
All right, we're here today for a failure to appear for leaving the scene without giving information. What says counsel for Mr. Chenier?
Your Honor, I would ask that Mr. Chandler be released on his own recognizance or non-monetary condition requiring him to report to PTR once or twice a week if the court wants to check in on him.
he does not qualify for PTR.
Does not qualify?
No.
What says the state?
Your Honors, they would request that bond remain as set by the warrant.
I had that set as $100.
Yes, Your Honor. State would,
All right, the court's going to find probable cause, keep the bond at $100. Any other issues on this case?
No, Your Honor.
Next up, we have Josephine Clemento.
Bonder, Your Honor.
All right, so bond it out. Next up, we have Mr. Griffin. Go ahead and state your name for the record.
Saving DeVay George Griffin.
All right, thank you. I'll go ahead and appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Who's counsel for Mr. Griffin?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Lydia Boudin.
All right, we're here today for a moving traffic violation, driving while license suspended or revoked. What says counsel for Mr. Griffin?
Your Honor, Mr. Griffin, as far as I can tell, he's been arrested, but he has no convictions. This is a duelist. I'd ask the court to ROR him and just with the condition that he not drive.
What says the state?
Your Honor, they would request that bond remain as set, and if he is released, no driving.
I'm going to go ahead and find probable cause, keep the bond at $500, and do not drive. Next up, do we have Mr. Zaleja? I don't have, I have a case number.
It's 210-15081.
They bonded.
You bonded?
Yes.
Next up, we have Caspian Ferguson. Behavior, what do you want to do?
We could reset him, Your Honor.
All right, we'll reset him for tomorrow. Got a lot of resets for tomorrow. Next up, we have Stephen Haddon. What would you like to do?
We could reset him, Your Honor.
Reset for tomorrow. Andrew Katani. Bonded. Next up, we have Escobar. Escobar bonded. Next up, we have Halyard.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
Remy Hilliard.
Go ahead and appoint Public Defense Officer to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Ms. Halyard?
Joshua Sinclair, Your Honor. I believe this is an out-of-county case.
Yes, this is an out-of-county warrant. Who's here for the state?
Vidya Budan, Your Honor.
What says counsel for Ms. Halyard?
Your Honor, I'd ask the court to set bond, but I'm not sure if the court can. So I'd ask for a $1,000 bond.
What says the state?
Bond to remain as set by the warrant, Your Honor.
Yeah, I'm not gonna give a bond. I'll find probable cause with no bond. Next up, we have Adela Ortiz. Go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
Adela Ortiz.
I'll go ahead and appoint the Public Defense Officer to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Ms. Ortiz?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Vidya Budan.
All right, we're here today for an out-of-county warrant. What says counsel for Ms. Ortiz?
Your Honor, I would just ask the court to keep the bond that's set in the warrant.
What says the state?
Bond to remain as set, Your Honor.
I'm gonna find probable cause, set bond at $3,000. Keep it at $3,000. Next up, we have Stacy Trombetta. Go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
State my name. Stacy Trombetta.
I'll go ahead and appoint the Public Defender's Office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for Ms. Trombetta?
Joshua Sinclair.
Who's here for the state?
Vidya Budan.
We're here today for a VOP for an out-of-county warrant. What says counsel for Ms. Trombetta?
Your Honor, it's out of county. Defense has no argument.
Of course, going to find probable cause and no bond. And I'm not going to take any action in regards to 2021 CT 3429. Now we need to go on to the Portuguese interpreter case. And that case is we're attempting to get in contact with the Portuguese interpreter. This is for the case of Forges Quiliternero. Do we have the Portuguese interpreter?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, let's go ahead and get the Portuguese interpreter sworn in.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to translate from Portuguese to English, English to Portuguese truthfully in these matters here today?
I do.
Okay, thank you. The person who needs the interpreter today is the alleged victim, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
Can Mr. Forjas Culamentero state your name for the record, please?
Senhor Borges, o senhor fala o seu nome para o registro.
Otávio Forjaz, o Kim Militerno.
I'll go ahead and appoint Public Defender's Office to represent you. Who's here as counsel for the defendant?
Joshua Sinclair.
Joshua Sinclair é o advogado de defesa.
Who's here on behalf of the state?
Vidya Budan.
And we also have a victim here today. Please state your name for the record.
Por favor, a vítima diga o seu nome para o registro.
Gabriela de Andrade Cardarelli, Militerno.
What would the victim like the court to know?
O que a vítima gostaria que a corte soubesse?
Que ele é o meu marido e ninguém me perguntou nada ontem para chamar a polícia. Eu não entendo, eu não falo inglês e ele nunca me bateu, ele nunca foi agressivo. Nós temos 2 filhos juntos e eu achei um absurdo chamarem a polícia e ele está aqui hoje tendo que responder isso, sendo que eu nem entendo o que o policial falou e as pessoas que chamaram a polícia nem ao menos me perguntaram o que houve. Eu estou inconformada, é um absurdo isso está acontecendo aqui. Meu marido deveria estar comigo em casa, não está aqui. A gente nessa situação, eu tenho 2 filhos em casa.
Wait, ma'am, let the interpreter interpret what you're saying.
I'd like to say that he is my husband. I don't speak English, and yesterday nobody talked to me why they called the police. He doesn't deserve to be here. He was never violent. He never assaulted me. He never hit me. We have 2 children. He should be at home and not here. It's an absurd that someone called the police. I am not hurt, and he is here.
Is there anything else you want the court to know?
Mais alguma coisa que você gostaria que a corte soubesse?
Sim, eu gostaria que meu marido voltasse para casa. Ele é totalmente inocente, não tem culpa de nada, nunca me bateu. Ninguém me perguntou nada antes disso, era só isso que eu queria que soubesse. Ele nunca me bateu, nunca foi violento, nunca.
I'd like to. My husband went back home. He is innocent. He was never violent towards us. He never hit me. He never beat me. He needs to be home.
Does defense have any questions of the victim?
No, Your Honor.
Do you have any questions of the victim?
No, Your Honor.
What says
A
the state?
defesa e a acusação.
Your Honor,
Yes, Your Honor.
based on a witness identified as Lucas Kojo observing the defendant's striking the victim in the face with a closed fist and the officer observing injuries to the victim. State has no objection to a bond. However, state requests no contact with victim and maintains separate residences.
Baseado no testemunho de Lucas Cucho, que observou o acusado bater no rosto da vítima com o punho fechado, e tendo em vista esta acusação, nós solicitamos fiança e que não haja contato entre o acusado e a vítima e que fiquem em residências separadas.
Have you had a chance to speak to Help Now or a victim advocate?
Você teve tempo de falar com o Help Now ou com um advogado de vítimas?
Nunca me perguntaram nada e ele nunca me bateu de mão fechada, não foi assim, foi interpretado de uma maneira totalmente equivocada.
No, I never spoke with anybody. Nobody asked me anything, and he never hit me on the face with a fist or otherwise. It was totally misinterpreted.
Do you have any kind of a safety plan in place in case you were involved in a violent situation?
Você tem um plano de segurança caso se envolva em uma situação violenta?
Não, nunca me envolvi em uma situação violenta. Nunca. Não tenho plano nenhum.
I do not have any plan, but I was never involved in any violent situation.
This is counsel for the defendant.
Your Honor, Mr. Forjaz has no criminal history whatsoever. The victim clearly wants him home. She wants to have contact with him. If the court sets a bond, in the end of the day, it's going to be punishing her because she's going to be the one, I'm sure, that is going to post it. But ask the court to ROR him and just set no hostile contact.
Does the state?
A defesa fala que não há nenhuma ameaça, não houve nenhuma ameaça feita, que a vítima é a primeira a querer o acusado em casa, e estabelecimento de fiança vai somente prejudicar a vítima, pois no final será ela que terá que pagar esta fiança.
Your Honor, based on the affidavit reflecting that the victim did advise at the scene that she was struck in the face, the state would still request no contact and to maintain separate residences.
Baseado na declaração feita na cena de que o acusado atacou a vítima no rosto, nós reiteramos a necessidade não só da fiança, mas de manter residências separadas, sem contato.
Que absurdo.
The court's going to find probable cause. The court's going to set the bond at $1,000. No contact with the victim. Maintain separate residence. You can retrieve your personal belongings one time.
A corte decide pelo lado da causa provável e estabelece uma fiança de $1.000 com as provisões de não haver contato com a vítima e manter residência separada.
That's all for the interpreter. We're going to move on to the next case.
Do you still need the interpreter, Your Honor?
No, we don't. Thank you very much.
Thank you for using your services. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you. Oh, we've got one more case left. It is Dylan Aaron. We were trying to reach Attorney Guidry.
Your father in Stewart? No. Never? No. Okay. We from Bloomfield. New Jersey? The Bloomfield, Carolina. I was delivered. You don't know. My parents are actually delivered now. Yeah, they're supposed to come back today, but no, yesterday, but they got canceled. They won't know. Oh, is that why you're getting? Yeah. Yeah, I know. Did you like? My last name is Villanueva. My family calls me.
Hello.
Hi, do we have Attorney
Ms.
Guidry on behalf of Dylan Aaron?
Yes, Your Honor. Happy Saturday.
You too, you too. Dylan Aaron, please go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
Dylan Aaron.
And who's here on behalf of the state?
Vidya Budan, Your Honor.
All right, we're here today for a violation of probation for PTR conditions on a domestic violence case. What says counsel for Mr. Aaron?
Your Honor, we would be asking, this is a misdemeanor that I think will work out, so we'll ask the court to grant a bond with some heavy conditions to make sure these two don't see each other. I know that she's on probation as well, so it's complicated, but however Your Honor wishes to enforce that, we're happy if we can.
What says the state?
Your Honor, the defendant does have a previous conviction of a violation of PTR on a domestic violence case from 12/9/2020. State would request that bond remain as set by the warrant and no contact with the victim and maintain separate residences if he does bond out.
The bond that was set was at none. Is the state requesting a monetary amount of bond?
No, Your Honor, state is requesting that it remains as set by the warrant, which is no bond.
If a bond were set, how much would the state be requesting?
The state would request a high bond, Your Honor. I'd leave it to the court's discretion. Just would like the court to know that he does have a previous conviction from 2020.
Looking at the violations, the violation indicates a probationer failed to pay $50 per month cost of supervision, and the probationer failed to have no contact communication with the victim, including but not limited to face-to-face, electronic contact, or phone contact as reflected in the attached sworn affidavit, copy of which is attached here too. I don't have anything attached to it. It's 2020 MM 7180. There was a warrant that was signed. Looking up what the allegations are for the violations of probation. Does the state need a copy as well, or do you already have it?
I'm looking, Your Honor.
The potential violations, it indicates that on May 26, 2021, a sworn statement was submitted by the victim alleging that the defendant had made contact with her and it was making threats. In addition, the victim submitted text messages and call logs. Obviously, the court is concerned in regards to that allegation. And the attachment says,
Yes,
my
Your
name is,
Honor,
it says the name of the victim, and it says he was calling her, threatening to kill her, and harassing her, and she's in fear for her life. And he called yesterday, which was May 25th, and he threatened to kill her boyfriend as well. So those are some pretty serious allegations in regards to a violation. So what the court's going to do is the court's going to
Yes, Your
find
Honor.
probable cause, keep the bond at none, and you can always bring it up in front of the judge who's assigned to the case.
We'll do that, Your Honor.
All right, any other issues on this case?
Not for the time being, but thank you for reaching out.
You're welcome. What says the state?
Your Honor, state would just request, again, no contact with the victim, no phone calls, no third party, no, absolutely no contact with the victim.
No contact with the victim whatsoever. That means no direct contact, no indirect contact, no messages, no jail calls, no letters, no cards, no social media, no anything, okay? All right, thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend. We're going to go ahead and go off the record.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, Judge.